some folks to come in. So just give us one moment and we'll get started. We're glad you're here. So Andre, if you want to go ahead and pull up the slides, please.
Will do.
Wonderful. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Andre. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us for this supported employment stakeholder meeting. My name is Jenny Jordan, and I'm a policy advisor for supported employment with the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing. I'm being assisted behind the scenes today by Lauren Riley and Andre Johnson. So we'll go ahead and get started. Next slide. We always like to start by grounding ourselves in our mission, which is to improve healthcare equity and access and outcomes for the people we serve while saving Coloradans money on healthcare and driving value for Colorado. Next slide. As indicated in the materials that were shared to announce this meeting, we are looking to clarify the service definition for supported employment services within the Developmental Disabilities, or DD, and the Supported Living Services, SLS, waivers as part of the upcoming waiver renewal process. The purpose of this meeting is to provide insights into what we are thinking and to gather your thoughts and feedback related to the proposed changes. Next slide. Can you go back one, Andre? And again. There we go. So the purpose of the meeting. So we did that, sorry. There we go. Agenda is what I'm looking for. There we go. I think I just had an extra click there. Thank you. So briefly, here's what you can expect from our meeting today. We will cover some housekeeping and outline opportunities that are available for providing feedback. Next, we'll provide some context about what we're able to change and the related timelines. And we will revisit what is currently in the waiver language, and then we will spend a bulk of our time going over the concepts and language that we are proposing. So I'm going to forecast for you that we will be using the poll questions feature in Zoom. So to get a read of the room throughout the presentation. So to that end, we're going to launch our first question now to get a better idea of who's joining us today. So we'll launch that first poll question. So please take a moment to share how you identify yourself kind of amongst the options that are there. You can select more than one. And if you don't see an option that reflects your situation, please enter a response in the chat. So meanwhile, we will cover some of the housekeeping. Just a second. Just a second. There we go. Got too many things popping up now. Okay, so related to housekeeping, I know we're all pretty used to the virtual environment at this point. However, just want to remind everyone to please stay muted unless you are asking a question or sharing a reflection. If we notice you are not muted and there's background noise, a member of our team might mute you to make sure that everybody can hear the speaker. Please feel free to use the chat to ask questions and to provide comments or feedback. Lauren Riley and I will be answering questions in the chat and or addressing them verbally as part of the discussion. If you would like to ask a question verbally, please use the raise hand feature, which is located on the lower toolbar. And this will help us kind of track who's waiting to speak. We will be pausing at regular intervals to collect feedback throughout the poll, through the polls, and we also will stop at points to open the floor to verbal reflections. So let's take a quick moment to review the results of our first poll. Okay, so can folks see the results there? So it looks like we've got quite a bit of a representation from our employment community. Welcome, as well as some other kind of folks from the disability field. So we're very, very glad to have you here. Okay, next, or sorry, not this next slide. Andre, I will cue you each time. I want you to change the slides just so we're not getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, sorry. Every time the survey pops up and I try to close it, it moves me forward.
Yeah, yeah, the polls were bumping me in weird places too, so no worries.
Okay.
So we just wanted to take some time to share more about what to expect and how you can provide feedback. First, if you're joining us today, December 6th of 2023, please participate in the live polls. If you have thoughts to share or questions to ask, please put them in the chat or raise your hand. Second, if you're listening into this recording after the fact, we are grateful for your involvement and your participation too. We want to hear your feedback also. We have a survey by way of a Google form that will be posted on our website along with the recording and the slide deck. This survey will have similar questions that we will have covered in the poll, and there's space to add any additional reflections that you might have. The survey will be available through December 31st. We will be regularly checking for feedback in the survey, and we'll incorporate it into our work. So for those of you who are here today, you can also make use of the survey, especially if you're a processor like me. If you want to do a deeper dive and then provide your thoughts, this will allow you some time to come back and revisit, and then enter additional feedback into the survey at your own pace. So keeping in mind, though, the December 31st deadline. But the survey is kind of available and open to anybody as you guys have thoughts. We're excited to have that as a mechanism to collect feedback. Next slide. Okay, so some elements to keep in mind. We are specifically focusing on the waiver language today. All of the language and concepts we are sharing at this point are not final. It is what we are proposing, and we want your input. Your feedback will help shape the outcomes and direction. If you think we're on the right track, please let us know. If you have concerns or reservations, please let us know that too. We are capturing what's shared in the meeting as well as what is collected through that Google form survey. Ultimately, we need to get federal approval for any waiver language. I will outline the steps and timelines in a moment. As we go through the process, we may decide some of the detail might be better suited to rule rather than waiver. No matter where the information is incorporated in rule or in waiver, we want it to be clear and helpful, and your feedback today will be invaluable. I will forewarn you, some of the slides have lengthy text because we wanted to share the language that we are proposing and get honest and tangible feedback. By providing the slides, the recording, and having the survey available, we hope that you can access the information you need and take the time you need to collect and share your thoughts. So we thank you in advance. Next slide. But let's take a moment to pause to set the stage regarding waiver renewals and what has been happening in the Medicaid supported employment realm. Next slide. So as you may know, each of the Medicaid waivers is approved by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, for a specified period of time. In most cases, the waivers are approved for a 5-year span. Prior to the time lapsing, states must submit the entire waiver to be renewed. This is an ideal time to make changes, as CMS will be reviewing all aspects of the waiver. The current span for the DD and SLS waivers began July 1st of 2019 and will be ending on June 30th of 2024. So what we are now compiling is what we want to submit for that waiver renewal. States can also adjust elements of their waivers through an amendment process. So when there are amendments, CMS only looks at the sections that were edited by the state. In Colorado, we typically have 2 times a year that are designated for this amendment process. And adding benefits planning and workplace assistance to the DD and SLS waivers were examples of a recent waiver amendment. So I know there's a lot of moving parts to this, but to be clear, from a supported employment perspective, what we are currently working towards is the waiver renewals for the DD and SLS waivers. Next slide. So let's look at the timeline that we're working with. As mentioned before, we are sharing what we have drafted with you as part of this stakeholder session. We must finalize the language and get approval through our internal clearance process before January 12th. For the month of February, the language will be available for public comment, at which time you can review the text and submit reflections. This is a built-in feedback opportunity in the process. After public comment, we will take the feedback, review, address, and then the application will be submitted to CMS. During their review period, they may ask questions, and HCPF may revise or clarify as needed. Assuming all goes to plan, the waivers will be approved to become effective on July 1st of 2024. So in summary, the time for us to make the changes is now, and the outcome of this work will come to fruition in July. And not to sound like a broken record, we would love to incorporate as much of your feedback as we can now, if possible. So please share your ideas via the avenues outlined earlier. Next slide. I also wanted to take a moment to quickly revisit some of the work that has been happening on the Medicaid supported employment front. July 1st of 2023 was an exciting time for us as 2 new benefits became available, benefits planning and workplace assistance. Also at that time, individual supported employment services were removed from the service plan authorization limit, or SPAL, and Colorado marked an important milestone regarding subminimum wage. There are no longer companies paying people less than minimum wage because of their disability. So lots to celebrate. Next slide. So we thought it would be helpful to include the current waiver language as a point of reference for this discussion. Before we get into it, I wanted to mention that when we added workplace assistance to the DD and SLS waivers through the amendment process, CMS reviewed the entirety of the supported employment waiver definition because that's where workplace assistance falls. Through that process, CMS raised several questions and suggested that language from their technical guide be incorporated. As a result, we made adjustments to the supported employment language at that time, specifically recognizing that Colorado is an employment first state, and we added clarification regarding job placement. So in other words, prior to the recent addition of workplace assistance, the supported prior to the addition of workplace assistance to supported employment, there was not specific mention of employment first, in the waiver definition. So if some of the language outlined here seems a little different than what you recall seeing previously, you're not wrong. On each of the slides with the current waiver language reflects what sort of elements were changed or added. If you have questions about this history and process, I would be happy to discuss offline. The focus of this meeting is what we want to evolve the definition to be. Essentially, we believe that the suggestions within the CMS technical guide are a fine baseline. However, we want to do even more. Next slide. So the next 8 slides reflect the current language regarding job development, job coaching, and supported employment in general. Because we wanted to spend a bulk of our time on the proposed language, I'm going to move through these slides fairly quickly. We thought that by having the current language included in the slides, that it would be helpful as a reference to you, especially if you wanted to revisit the slides later. In the meantime, you can consider this kind of a fast, high-level walkthrough of supported employment waiver language. So to jump in, the current waiver language reflects that supported employment helps people with disabilities obtain and maintain a job in competitive or customized employment, and it includes supported employment. It specifies that the worker must be paid at least minimum wage and have similar benefits to employees without disabilities. Next slide. The desired outcome of employment is being reimbursed at or above minimum wage that meets personal and career goals. It's conducted in settings in the general workforce, in which members interact regularly with non-disabled individuals. Next slide. As previously mentioned, the language reflects that Colorado is an employment-first state and that competitive integrated employment, or CIE, is the most preferred outcome for members. Supported employment services promotes members in obtaining, sustaining, and advancing community employment. Next slide. Supported employment is available to small groups of members. If a member wishes to pursue group employment as opposed to an individual job, they may choose to do so. Group employment settings must be in compliance with the Home and Community-Based Services, or HCPF, final settings rule. Next slide. The current waiver language specifically identifies which services are considered supported employment, and then it shifts to making a distinction between individual and group supported employment. Participants must be involved in work outside of a base site, and individual employment does not include mobile work crews. Next slide. Group employment does include mobile work crews and should not exceed 8 people. Group employment services are to be provided in regular business and industry settings, and it does not include work in facility-based work settings that are not part of the general community workplaces. Next slide. So next comes 2 brief descriptions of job development and job coaching. Job development, the identification of vocational interests in preparation of job development, and the assisting of the participant in locating a job or job development on behalf of the participant. Job coaching services focus on activities needed to support members to take on job responsibilities. This includes training, systematic instruction, and developing strategies to fade support as much as possible. Supported employment does not include payment for supports typically available to other workers without disabilities filling similar positions. Next slide. So the next section of the waiver service definition goes into detail about job placement, which is a service that can cover materials a person may need for work that are not covered elsewhere. We're going to dig into this a little bit more in detail later on. Next slide. So then the waiver definition goes into some elements that we're not planning to change and thus will not be discussing today. This specifically is regarding workplace assistance, telehealth, and the connection the services have with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or DVR. Next slide. So, having skimmed through the current waiver language, you may have your own thoughts or feelings about them. I would like to summarize the reflections those of us specializing in supported employment at HCPF have. First, the format feels confusing as the language for group and individual employment is all kind of mashed in together. We believe that there is insufficient detail and that people outside of supported employment cannot easily explain the service. A case in point, the single sentence describing job development references job development 3 times. Additionally, we think that the language is lacking in some of the depth related to employment first, and it does not set a good example for person-centeredness. But before we move on, let's do another quick poll question. The question is, do you agree that the identified limitations within the waiver language should be addressed? Sorry, I can't tell. Is the poll up?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So there's the poll counts. Do you agree that this is something we should be putting time to? I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide, and we'll come back to that poll in just a moment. So kind of a summary of our proposed changes. We want to update the definition to encompass more of the employment first philosophy. We want to separate individual and group supported employment. We want to add detail to the descriptions of job development and job coaching for clarity. And we are considering changing the name of job placement as it is misleading. So let's go ahead and if we can share the results of the poll. And it looks like by and large, folks are saying, yep, this is something we should be putting time and attention to. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. It gives a good sense for us of kind of how the community is feeling. Let's move to the next slide. All right. So we're going to take some time to look at the concepts and the specific language that we are considering. This is where your input and ideas will be invaluable. Before getting into it, though, I do want to mention that we do have some parameters that we are bound to. Specifically, we cannot change the language in a way that would limit who could access the service from what we currently have, nor can we make it so that the service extends beyond what it would currently cover. So, for example, we can add language that reflects that job development includes assisting a member with completing job applications, creating a resume, or negotiating with an employer, as this is putting words to describe what job development is. And we would currently reimburse providers for job development if they were doing any of those activities. On the other hand, in an extreme example, we could not make changes to say that every member who works is entitled to a personal chef and they will prepare the meals that they will take to work. While that might be a nice thought, this would not be something that would be covered in the current waiver definition and thus would be outside of the scope of what we could change. Also at this time, we cannot change the rates, codes, thresholds, or payment structure. We are specifically clarifying the definition and limitation sections of the waiver application. We're not touching the other sections or structures. We are trying to thread a fine needle here. So there may be times that we will take your feedback and we might not be able to make the updates at this time, like through this particular process, but we will definitely keep it in mind as we continue to make improvements to these services. So thank you in advance for your patience and understanding of these parameters. Again, as a reminder, all of this is proposed language. It is not final. We want your feedback, and we will be stopping about every 3 slides or so to get input along the way. So for each of these slides, kind of be thinking about what's being proposed, how do you feel about it, how would you rate it on clarity? A lot of our poll questions kind of boil down to, are you in favor of it? Do you like it? How clear is it? Would you be comfortable with what's outlined? Would it give direction for what you need to be doing in your role? All right, so we will start with some general items and then get into more specifics. Next slide. So we want to add language that makes it clear that all positions related to supported employment are to be paid at or above minimum wage, with access to the same opportunities for benefits and advancement that are provided to employees without disabilities. Also, that positions may be full-time or part-time, and offer opportunities for individuals with having interactions with coworkers without disabilities, customers, and or the general public. This includes positions for group employment, self-employment, and what job development should be helping the members obtain. Next slide. Another area that will have an overall impact is weaving in more employment first and self-direction language. For the sake of the slides and the polling, we're calling these concepts capability and direction. We want to specifically state that all adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities can work when given the opportunity, training, and support, and that individuals' preferences, interests, goals, strengths, and needs are central to effectively exploring career options. And also opportunities to advance in employment and explore new employment should be visited on a regular basis. Next slide. Shifting gears slightly, we would like to give more definition to self-employment, as currently it is basically a one-word mention. This would include that self-employment includes the development and implementation of a viable business plan. We were thinking of aligning with DVR's criteria for business plans. Individual supported employment could assist members with setting up and operating the self-employment business. However, Medicaid funds cannot be used to defray the expenses associated with the starting up or operating of the business. We would support with self-employment. That support can occur in the member's home if it makes sense related to that business model. So let's pause here. We're going to do some poll questions related to kind of the last 3 slides. And so please weigh in on your thoughts regarding that overall language changes related to position and capability and direction. Also, there's a question related to self-employment. So while folks are answering the poll questions, we can stop briefly to address some questions that have come in.
Okay, there's a couple in the chat. Jenny, do you want me to read them to you?
Yeah, if you would.
Sure. Okay, so Jody says, many people work in industrial settings. it's important that interaction with customers is specific to the type of job and business model.
Absolutely, Jody, totally agree with that. So we want to make it so it's not that the position that they are hired into, that's what it's being compared to. I think that also plays out with remote work as well. So yes, thank you for raising that. And we have it on our radar and do want to frame the language in that way.
Thank you. And then Madeline says, I think that the positions need to offer individual opportunities for interactions consistent with other employees working in the same position. We have had DVR deny placement in a community position that was working at state parks because the position itself was mostly working alone, but the same would be true for any person working that job without a disability.
Absolutely.
So that feels the same, similar to Jody's comment too.
Yes, thank you, Madeline, and appreciate you offering up the language to think about as well. So thank you. All right, let's take a look at the poll questions, and then we can kind of keep going on. Lauren, are you able to talk through the poll questions easily?
Yeah. I can, you can see the results, right?
I can, but with the way my screens are set up, it's a little challenging. So.
Yeah, I'm just making sure they're up there. Okay. So it looks like 42% of people said they're excited about the updates. 44% said they would be mostly helpful. 9% were indifferent. 2% said it wasn't necessary, and 4% said it would make it more difficult to provide services. And that was related to the position and capability question. And then the results were pretty similar for the self-employment. We had 44 and 37% say they were excited or that they would be mostly helpful, 16% indifferent, and then 2% said it would make it more difficult to provide services.
Great, thank you so much.
And I have one other quick note in the chat, Jenny.
Please.
Maureen says, love self-employment. What about contractor work? It's a reality, like 1099 work.
Yeah, I think our intention is to try and make it so that anybody with whatever their disability, if they're getting support through the waivers, can have a job that's similar to whatever any of people who are not in the waivers might be able to have. So if you have suggestions on language that we could incorporate to make that clear, but that is very much in line with what we're wanting to envision. We do want to tie it to a viable business plan. So people aren't setting up situations where people are working from home doing their own little crafts and they sell something for $5 once a year. If it's self-employment, we want it to be true self-employment. But definitely there's some elements there. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide so we can kind of keep on rolling here. But first, thank you all for your thoughts and feedbacks. Keep it coming. So one of the changes that we think will bring a lot of clarity is to shift away from having all supported employment crammed into one definition as it currently is. We're proposing separating individual supported employment and group supported employment. So this would not have an impact on billing structure or codes. It would just be in the definitions. Next slide. So what it would do is have all of the individual supported employment services addressed under one service definition and all of the group supported employment services under another. So we think that this would reduce the confusion and nebulousness that we currently have because those definitions are smushed together. This would also bring Colorado in alignment with the CMS technical guide. Additionally, we think that it would provide clarity around what services are not counted under the service plan authorization limit or SPAL, as this distinction is only for individual supported employment services. And as just a brief note, the authorization process through case managers wouldn't change, nor would the service delivery. This change would make it so that there was a clear understanding about what is group and what is individual. Next slide. So here is a visual about how to think about it. One definition would be for individual supported employment. Within that overall definition, we would have specifics related to individual job development, individual job coaching, individual job placement, and workplace assistance. Next slide. And then similarly, there would be a definition for group supported employment, and within it, there would be specifics relating to group job development, group job coaching, and group job placement. So at this time, we do want to do another poll question to collect your initial thoughts about this as an idea. One thing to note is that there would be similar language between the individual and group as describing supported employment, but then we would be able to get more specific kind of within those definitions. So please enter your ideas in the chat, and then we can take an opportunity here if there's questions from the chat, or if somebody wants to raise their hand to pose a question.
I have one additional comment in the chat for Maureen. Temp to W-2 hire is also common. DVR doesn't like 1099 contractor or temp work. Waiver should be more flexible with common current business practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen.
And Rachel has her hand up.
Great, please.
So I really apologize. I might have missed something. But if there are issues with that DVR is not doing something, please reach out to me so that we can kind of figure that out, because kind of separate from what the amazing stuff HCPF is doing here, you know, we want to make sure we're working together to serve the people. So I did put my email in the chat to someone, and then happy to put it in again if that's helpful, because definitely want to make sure we're getting people on the right page versus, you know, separate pages. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate your partnership on that.
Tom asked in the chat, is there a reason you're using should be paid at or above minimum wage versus shall? He's wondering if there's a specific reason for that.
I don't recall a specific reason for that. I know that's an area that we will have to be paying more attention to, the shoulds and shalls and musts. So we will get into that detail a little bit later. If you've got thoughts, Tom, on one or the other, let us know. But I do know in my time in a public service, a year and change now, that those are important, and we'll have to look at it a little closer. So thank you.
Vicky has a suggestion for some of the language for the definition of supported employment, how to write it. So I'll note that.
Wonderful,
John,
thank you.
Yeah, John says, did Jenny just say that group supported employment services would not be exempted from the SPAL?
Yeah, so with the changes that currently had, group supported employment was not included. So group supported employment still needs to fall within the SPAL. In the changes that came through with Senate Bill 21039, it was specific to individual supported employment being outside of the SPAL. It did not relate to group. But I think that highlights where there is some confusion between, there is a distinction even now, but the way things are within the waiver doesn't make it clear in what that distinction is.
Thank you. Okay, I can go ahead and end the poll now.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind doing a quick overview.
Yep. Okay, so here are the results. It looks like 27% of people said they're excited about the updates. 47 said they would be mostly helpful. 19 were indifferent. And then 3 and 3% said they would prefer it to be the way that it is, or that it would make it more difficult.
Okay. Great, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. We're getting into some of the details here. So as we shared earlier, separating individual and group supported employment was one of the ideas we wanted to get your input about. The other big area is bringing more clarity to the definitions specific to job development and job coaching. So we will start with general job coaching language, and then we will have some specifics for individual and group to share. So next slide. All right. So in this section of the presentation, we're including some of the specific language that we are considering to submit as part of the waiver renewal. So feel free to make suggestions, or if one's really striking you and others are bothering you, like, let us know. So job coaching assists members to build, strengthen, and maintain necessary work skills, behaviors, and interpersonal relationships at the worksite. Job coaching includes supports provided to the member and the member's supervisor or coworkers on behalf of the member. Job coaching focuses on activities needed to support members to assume full responsibilities for their jobs, including providing training, systematic instruction, and other learning strategies based on the member's learning style and needs, and developing strategies to increase independence, integration, and autonomy at work to the fullest extent possible. Next slide. All right, and this next slide is specific to individual job coaching. The position the member is hired for must be the result of a competitively posted position, or was otherwise open to other possible applicants, or the position is customized for the member and meets their personal or career goals. Individual job coaching includes training the member on job assignments and providing guidance to the employer or coworkers, and periodic follow-up with the member and the employer to promote quality communication and address identified concerns. Next slide. So continuing with the job coaching language, individual job coaching provides support to one member at a time. Job coaching support provided to multiple members who are working at their own distinctive individual job positions at different locations or dispersed locations within a community business is considered individual job coaching. Individual job coaching is not intended for members working in mobile crews of small groups of people with disabilities in the community, nor of provider-owned sites where there are multiple members doing similar work during similar shifts. That type of work would be considered group job coaching. So before going further, let's pause to do a poll, kind of take the temperature on where everyone is at on this. We want to get a sense of your initial response to these ideas, and what you think, if you think that this would help offer clarity within your roles. And then again, please feel free to put questions in the chat, raise your hand while we collect everyone's thoughts on the poll.
Okay, I think what I'm gonna do is, if there are specific comments or feedback in the chat, I'm gonna just know that I'm collecting those, but I might not read every single one out loud for the sake of time. But I will read questions out loud, so I'm gonna kind of switch to doing that, Jenny.
That sounds great.
So David asked in the chat, why does the position need to meet the person's goals, and how is that determined?
I think we just wanted I appreciate you asking the question and raising it. David, I think we were trying just to say that to expand beyond that, it's not just a work goal. Sometimes people want to work for a more grander, like life fulfilling reason, and that the job can be connected to that. So it would be related to kind of service planning process, conversations with their team. What we want is people to be in jobs that they're enjoying and that meets them where they're at, as opposed to, well, I've got an in at the local Walmart, so you're going to work at Walmart. We want to make sure it's being driven by the person.
And Tom has his hand up too.
Hey,
Right,
yeah,
Tom.
thank you. I'm gonna turn my camera on real quick if it'll work. Oh, it doesn't look like. So I know we're talking about individual job coaching in this definition, but it's gonna, like, you're trying to tease out the difference, I'm assuming here, in what's individual versus what's a group by that second paragraph. So in our previous iteration, we had what I can at best can describe a dispersed group, and I think Katie came out and saw it. I don't know if Katie's on this webinar or not. And so we always build that as group, even though the individuals did not work as a group. They did not hold necessarily the same positions, although sometimes they did, but they would be working in different areas of the facility. It was not, so you're trying, like the provider owned, where there's multiple members doing similar work, that kind of would have fit that definition because they're all working in the same facility doing similar work, but it wasn't provider owned. That was a community job still. It was out in the community. And I don't know if you just want to, I don't know why you're focusing on provider owned there, where I would think that just because even if I were to do that again, I would think, oh, okay, I don't know, can I then build mine individually? Because this isn't provider owned, where I would think that it wouldn't matter to you, right? The point is that you have multiple people that you're supporting. Even if you're not supporting them all at the same time, you're supporting them all in that same span of time, i.e., however many hours they're working there, kind of going from one to the other. And I think that would clarify it for me anyway, that, hey, it doesn't matter if it's provider owned or not. Like, if there are multiple people working at any facility or any community place or whatever, that if you're doing that with two or more, then is that one or is that a group, right? That's what, because I just defaulted to group just to keep myself out of getting into trouble.
Thank you for those thoughts, Tom. Jody, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. And to Tom's point, if you're looking at the habilitative definition of job coaching and you're teaching a new skill, sorry, I think somebody else is talking. And if you're teaching a new skill and you have a single job coach that is supporting an individual and is working with that individual alone, again, I'm not certain why there is a focus on the provider owned or provider whatever, right? To me, it's the act of the job coaching that is occurring.
I appreciate that feedback, Jody. Madeline?
I guess I would actually advocate the opposite of Tom, because we've had people who have worked individually at a site where another person works individually at that site, and they both need job coaches to complete their duties individually, and that person is there with them one-on-one providing that service. And so I think that there needs to be, I guess, clarification as to what that expectation is, because for us, interpreting it that way, which yeah, I guess I just saw Jody's chat, but yeah, is that, we have people who need that one-on-one, and we wouldn't want to bill it as group supportive employment because they're not receiving those supports as a group, they're receiving it individually.
That's great. Thank you all so much for those thoughts. You're getting at the egg we're trying to crack for sure, of how do you describe kind of what is group, what is individual, and what happens if someone is in what we would traditionally say is a community position. If they're a courtesy clerk and there's multiple people who happen to work there, we would consider those individual community jobs. And so trying to make that distinction in those different work arrangements. So very much appreciate each of you sharing your thoughts on that and giving the examples. So we'll continue to kind of figure out how do we make the language as clear as we can and be as inclusive as what we're wanting it to be. So do we have the poll results, Lauren, real quick?
Yeah, we also have Madeline has a hand raised.
I just didn't take it down, sorry.
Okay, just want to make sure.
All right, thank you.
Okay, here are the poll results. We've got kind of all over the board for the suggested changes around job coaching and how you're feeling about them. And then it looks like most people were pretty confident that they would understand the definition of job coaching based on what we just showed.
Great. Again, thank you all. It's really helpful feedback. Next slide, we're going to keep on going here. In addition to what we shared in detail in the earlier slides, which primarily deals with that initial training and onboarding, we also are considering adding language that would provide more details in the following areas for that individual job coaching. So to be honest, some of these details may be better suited for rule rather than waiver. However, we wanted to mention them to you today, and like this is what we're thinking and kind of moving towards. We would maybe like to indicate that individual job coaching includes developing strategies for long-term success at work. This could include identifying coping or self-management strategies to use at work, support to relearn job tasks or master additional skills, developing strategies to check for quality, etc. This also includes the engagement of natural supports in the workplace to promote members' integration, and it may help maximize the job coach's ability to fade. Also, specifically that job coaching can support members with work-related activities that are not specific to their job, such as requesting time off, calling in sick, and getting assistance with wage reporting or submitting documentation to show a change in income or work status. And additionally, including language that reflects the guidance a job coach might be offering that employer or the coworkers. This could be assisting with raising like disability awareness or disability etiquette kinds of things in general, or it could be specific about the employed member. It may also include kind of the identification of successful communication strategies or modeling for coworkers as well. Next slide. Okay, next we have a slide about job coaching. Group job coaching. So group job coaching, the provider is expected to conduct this service in integrated business, industry, or community settings that meet all the HCBS setting standards and do not isolate the member from others in the setting who do not have disabilities. The primary focus of group job coaching is job related and also encompasses adherence to work policies, safety, productivity, dress code, work schedule, building coworker and supervisor relationships, hygiene, and self-care. And a provider of group job coaching shall provide the service in a manner that presumes all participants can work in competitive integrated employment. So there's a lot packed onto these 2 slides. We're gonna stop there, do some poll questions on these items, and kind of additional topics, so. All right, thanks, Lauren, for launching that poll. So again, giving us your feedback on that group job coaching. Again, if you want to raise your hand to speak, or we can address questions coming in from chat. So
Catherine has her hand up, yeah.
Catherine Carroll, are you able to unmute?
We can come back. Not seeing a lot of questions in the chat, but some comments about making sure the client and case management agency knows that group job coaching is ding their service plan, is what the person commented. And Dakota asked, do you guys plan to add any definitions around fading out services? Maybe adding something to individual job coaching.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I'm figuring out how to be unmuted.
Oh,
when you have time.
Great. Go ahead, Catherine.
My phone is much more confusing than my computer. There are a couple things that come up on this for me is that I would suggest that we put in the use of technology, assistive technology. If we're talking about disability awareness, I think technology is one of the keys to ensuring that both people who are working, who have disabilities, are relevant for the time that they work in. That technology should be a part of job coaching and assessing that with the case manager and being ultimately skilled in helping people use technology, whether it's assistive technology or universal technology. I get concerned that this feels a little 20th century to me. Having been in the field for that long, I'm not picking up a lot of new stuff on this that makes it relevant for the time that I also agree with Maureen on the 1099. I worked for 30 years on 1099, doing my business accordingly, and I think you have to be open to it, because that is a nature of employment. That's not necessarily something we're comfortable with, but I think we should get somewhat skilled in how people navigate that. Business plan by people who've never been in business concerns me a little bit, and so I think if we're going to require business planning, we have to develop that resource in much more significant ways. I think we should make business planning much more bureaucratic than in reality. And the other thing I'm a little concerned about with some of this language is that when you look at autonomous and independence, that could have unintended consequences for those people who like to work, but are always going to need some support in work. And I don't know how you're going to work that. I'm sure that's a concern. It's tough on how to do that, but I think the goal is to get people without support. I think we're probably setting up. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. The audio made it challenging, but I think I captured most of what you're saying, and we can go back in the recording, and I got your contact information. We can chat more on some of these factors as necessary. But very much appreciate your thoughts and wanting it to be as inclusive and forward thinking as possible. So appreciate that. I do think there was an element you had said with Dakota's point on like adding something to individual job coaching related to fading. Yes, we are looking at some of the elements of that. And as a reminder, we do now have the workplace assistance service. So for people who do need kind of the longer term kinds of supports, that it might not be job coaching for long-term, it might be workplace assistance. So I think it gives us some more opportunities there. Lauren, do you want to do the poll results and if there's anything else?
Yeah, I will do the poll results. Okay, so it looked like people were interested or excited about all the different concepts that we're looking at. And also had some concerns about the concepts that we're looking at. And if I know people have shared some concerns, but feel free to share other concerns in the chat or through the feedback form. Initial reaction for the changes in group job coaching looks like mostly helpful or indifferent on this one. And then kind of mixed, but mostly confident for being able to understand the activities for group job coaching.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so we're going to do similar kind of walkthrough with job development, starting with the overall definition. Next slide. All right, so job development supports a member to acquire employment in a job that meets their personal and career goals. Job development is designed to assist members to explore work goals and possibilities and to access competitive or customized employment. Job development supports may include any combination of the following services: vocational or job-related discovery or assessment, person-centered employment planning, negotiation with prospective employers, job analysis, and assistance with activities typical to conducting a job search. Next slide. These services would be provided in the presence of the member and be conducted in the community to the maximum extent possible. But the completion of activities in the home, in a provider's location or facility, or without the presence of the member may be appropriate depending on individual circumstances. Job development activities that take place in the member's home or the provider's location must be clearly connected to the outcome of supporting the member to obtaining employment in the community. Next slide. So now for individual job development, some of the language here. Individual job development may include career exploration and discovery activities, community-based formal or informal assessments, job application, completion assistance, support with job interviewing, and travel training. Individual job development may also include outreach, negotiation, and/or consultation with prospective employers around job opportunities, duties, work hours, earnings, job expectations, and accommodations, with or without the presence of the individual, based on individual need. And next slide. So I'm going to just jump into group job development here. This is likely an area many of you may not have considered as a separate service. However, it can be. And here's some examples of what it might look like. So group job development may include career exploration and discovery activities that raise awareness of the member about their own strengths and abilities, or about potential work sites or job opportunities that they had not previously known about or considered. Group job development includes touring businesses with the intention of learning about different job types.
Hey, Jenny.
Oh,
sorry.
yes.
Andre, can you go to the next slide, please? We're still on. Thank
you.
Oh,
I'm sorry. My apologies.
Sorry, didn't click.
All right. Yeah. So kind of picking up on the second paragraph. So group job development also includes group instruction on topics related to obtaining employment, such as interviewing techniques, explaining roles and responsibilities for supervisors and employees, strategies for disclosing disability and requesting accommodations, and identifying what is needed to come to work prepared. So we've got another set of poll questions related to job development. And then there's specific questions related to group. So also want to just, again, open it up to folks who want to raise their hand or questions that have come in through chat.
I just want to make a note for these poll questions. The very last question is about job placement. That one's not going to make sense yet. It accidentally was in this grouping, so please don't answer that last question yet. And we will launch this again when we're ready for that one. So just answer the first 4.
Thank you, Lauren.
And not too many questions in the chat at the moment. Maureen mentioned making sure that development of self-employment is in the job development definition.
Great, thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? We can go ahead and do the poll, or people need a moment more.
We still got some responses coming in.
Okay.
We do have one more question in the chat I can read out, Jenny.
Thank you.
Will there be more defined language for case managers regarding funding processes, DVR referral processes, etc.? Oftentimes we see many case managers quickly referring clients to DVR when they express an interest in working, but not knowing they can utilize the waiver in the meantime as they are the payer of last resort. I think this would be very helpful and provide more clarity regarding these processes.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. Yes, this is an area. I don't know that the waiver language is the place that we can best address that. Our team is looking at, in the new year, figuring out case manager training. We've got some round table sessions coming up where it'll be joint hosted between DVR and HCPF, specifically targeting case management agencies and DVR counselors. So we're hoping that that's going to be the beginning of the kind of many conversations we hope to have with case management agencies about building awareness in general of what's available to people through the waivers and supported employment. And it's still very much in the incubator stages, but what can we do for training for case managers? Is it short little video clips just so they've got a better understanding of what the services are? But definitely there's a need there, and we're excited to try and help fill in some of the gaps that are there. So thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now.
Great, thanks.
All right, it looks like initial thoughts for the changes in job development. Most people said that the changes would be mostly helpful. A few people on either end of that. People seem to feel mostly confident that they would understand the definition, the way we presented it. And then for group job development, same thing. People feel mostly confident, some completely confident, and some couple not very confident. And then the initial thoughts and reactions about group job development, it looks like 78% said mostly helpful. And then again, we'll get to this question number 5. We'll relaunch this poll so we can answer this again after we talk more about job placement.
Let's go ahead and jump into job placement, and then we'll have some time for just general questions and comments. So go to the next slide, please. So again, we'll go ahead and look at job placement. We wanted to dig in a little bit more and kind of revisit some of the rules here. So go ahead and go to the next slide if you would. So as many of you are aware, job placement is as a name is a bit of a misnomer. It actually doesn't have to do with someone being placed in a job. So I wanted just to kind of revisit what does it entail. So what's actually in the waiver now is that job placement could be utilized for purchasing items that a member may need to be set up in a position at its onset. These items may be related to the member's disability and diagnoses, or they may be specific to the job and may include a uniform, specific work shoes or boots, or other gear that may be required prior to starting the position. Any items purchased under the auspice of job placement must directly relate to that member's need, related to obtaining and or sustaining community employment, and thus would reduce the likelihood of institutionalization. And on the earlier slide, we did share the entirety of job placement, and a lot of it goes into all the different like funding sources or things you might have to tap into prior to doing job placement. Next slide. For the sake of this, what we're looking at is not so much changing the substance, but mostly changing the name. So hopefully, as we were kind of looking at those core pieces of that definition, maybe some ideas came to mind for you. If so, please put them in the chat. Some of the ideas that we've batted around are job supplies and support tools, vocational goods and services, or job-related equipment and supplies. We're curious to see what you think, and if you have other questions or ideas. So with that, we're going to relaunch, I guess, the poll we just had, but just skip down to that last question that relates to the job placement.
Do you want questions now, Jenny, or
Sure.
okay.
One thing I did just realize is additionally on the job placement, we would like to adjust the language so that it's clear that items can be purchased to support the member with maintaining or advancing, not just the onset. So that is a piece we do want to tweak, but the majority of this one would be the same. So go ahead, Lauren, what questions?
Yeah, so we have a question about if the case manager assists with the purchases related to job placement.
I think we would need it to be, for the sake of billing purposes, it would need to go through a supported employment vendor. The case manager could potentially help in identifying what was needed, but in terms of the billing out, I think it would have to go through a supported employment vendor. Does that make sense or answer the question?
I asked the question. It's just, so we get that authorized through the case manager in the PAR. And then how do we go about ordering what is needed and getting those? But like, I'm just confused on the billing side of it.
Yeah, I think it's Tara, is that right?
Tara, yep.
Yeah. So just wanting, from a specific billing question, we might have to take that offline, but it would be a matter of like you do the purchase and then you would submit the reimbursement through the Medicaid.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we can definitely talk that through as you have it. Thank you. All right, so I know kind of our next chunk is for general questions. So maybe Lauren, let's wrap up on the job placement poll, and if there's anything in the chat related to that, and then we can just kind of open it up for anybody's other thoughts and things.
So results of the poll, we have some mixed viewpoints. A couple of people have some other ideas. We did get a few ideas in the chat, so thank you for sharing those. If you think of anything, definitely let us know.
Great, thank you. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. We wanted to just keep it open to whatever other questions might be coming up. Again, thank you all for your amazing participation and thoughtful input so far. We truly do appreciate it. So any questions in the chat?
Yeah, so there's a question from Karen that says, do we get paid for job coaching or job development for the staff time to purchase these items in addition to job placement for the actual cost of the items? So asking about the time it would take to do the process of that.
That is a great question, Karen. I appreciate it. Thank you. I feel like it could potentially fall under kind of job coaching or development, depending on where they're at. I wouldn't expect this to be a long process, so it probably wouldn't be a lot of time. At least I'm making assumption on that. So thank you.
Don't see any more coming in right now.
Right. So just to kind of prime the pump for just a moment, are there any concepts that you think we're missing that we should be considered when we're updating the language? Is there any of the proposed language that you've seen today that you would like to provide more detailed feedback on? Again, we have the that survey that you all are welcome to use, even if you're at this session. If you're like, I've got more thoughts than I can feel like I can get out right now, or I want some more time, please do leverage that survey. But we're curious if there's other things that you're like, oh, we wish this could be in there too.
Hey, Jenny, this is Catherine. I do have a final thought.
Oh, please.
I think that we have to allow for, if you're doing work on behalf of somebody to purchase a piece of technology or some other maybe non-technological support, that you have to research and find. Technology is pretty darn confusing and takes a fair amount of research to make sure that you're getting the correct device or support for an individual. You have a big learning curve on apps that are totally helpful with transportation and queuing somebody on the job and doing all that stuff. That does take time to learn. And I think if it's for the benefit of the individual, that should be available. Otherwise, people don't do it.
No, thank you so much for those comments, Catherine. I think that pairs nicely with Karen's question as well of what does it take to actually get people those tools that they need, including the technology. So very much appreciate raising that point, and we'll see kind of how far we can press in this current revision related to the waiver renewals. Again, we are bound by certain parameters, but I'd love to push into that as much as we can. So thank you.
We have couple things in the chat, and also Maureen has a hand raised. So let's start with Maureen.
Hi, this is Maureen Welch with Navigating Disability Colorado. I really think it's super important, and Ann Patton brought it up during the chat too, that we super define out the technology and assisted technology, because I can foresee, having been in this with my son, finger pointing that you need to go to the state plan. And then when you can't get it from the state plan, you have to go to your assisted technology benefit in your waiver. And then when you can't get it there, I think you really need to spell it out. If it's related to gaining and maintaining employment, it should be covered under this. And I think it's important that it's very specific. So I'd like to maybe revisit that in a future meeting.
I really appreciate those thoughts, Maureen. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, and there's a Mary Judy says, if when these changes are rolled out, could we somehow participate in DVR counselor training? The various offices interpret things so differently. These last changes to supported employment / not supported employment did not go well. And I see that Rachel has her hand raised too, so I imagine she might want to respond.
Oh, I do want to respond. Hi. We will work together with HCPF, as we always do, to figure out what's the best training that's related to DVR versus what's related to their specific changes in language. I think it can get a little bit confusing. So we absolutely, Jenny, Andre, Lauren, and my team will always stay on the same page to make sure that we can get consistent messages out across the state from all ends. And so everyone knows how to do all the things together. So yes. Jenny, if you guys have anything to add, but my answer would be, we will try to adjust that. And just to clarify, some of these changes are not DVR specific. Just want to throw that out there. This is very HCPF specific to things that they're working on.
Thanks, Rachel. Jenny, did you have anything to add to Rachel's comment?
I think it just underlines, I think those of us who live and breathe employment have a good handle of what's out there and the potential and have our heads wrapped around it mostly. But I think that there is a lot to be said about how do we get consistent messaging? How do we bring more people to the table and understanding what's available and processes? And I think that's a theme of a lot of the comments that have come up today. So again, thank you all for what you've shared. It's very helpful.
Another question in the chat is, if an item is purchased before they were aware that there was a waiver service to cover the item, would back billing be allowed?
That sounds like a more individual situation. Parents, if you want to email us, we can maybe talk through the specifics of exactly what's going on. More often than not, if they're connected with DVR is going to cover a lot of those things that job placement as a service would cover. So just to be aware of, it might depend on the timing and what exactly the back back timing might be. So let's chat about that one offline, please.
The last one I see is just to confirm the DVR services will remain more or less the same.
Yeah, HCPF does not have the authority to change what DVR is authorizing or doing. So that's not the intention of any of these changes. This is truly related to the DD and SLS waivers, supported employment services as they are at this time.
Yes, Mike, I appreciate you asking that question because two totally separate things. DVR, you'll hear from us if anything changes on our end. Remaining regarding rates and services and all that stuff.
Wonderful. So see, both Catherine and Maureen have hands raised. Is that from earlier? Or did you guys have additional items to share?
That's from earlier from me. Yeah.
Great. All right, well, we're getting towards the end of our time. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So our website has a copy of this, well, it doesn't have the copy of the recording yet, but it does have a copy of the slides. We also will have the survey out, which I believe Lauren put in the chat, and that's available to all now. And then once we're able to get the recording posted, we will. So please tell your friends, have other people review this material and then fill out the survey. If you have additional thoughts, you can definitely use that survey. We really want to bring as many heads to the table as we can as we're developing this, and we very much appreciate kind of the time you've put in with us today. Again, that survey will be open until the end of this year. Next slide. So to kind of recap some of where we're at and next steps. So we will be collecting and integrating this feedback We will be also coordinating with CMS. In February, there will be a formal public comment period related to all of the waiver renewals. After that timing, we will have that formal CMS review. Once the waiver is approved, we will work to update the rules associated with supported employment. And we look forward to continued engagement with all of you. As a note, we won't open the rules for revision until the new format related to case management redesign is approved, which I believe is slated for early 2024. But to say we will be kind of making sure that we have that alignment between what we put in the waiver and the rules, and might be able to be more descriptive in the rules. And lastly, next slide, I've included my contact information along with the dedicated inbox for supported employment. So if you would like to share your feedback beyond what can be captured in the survey, please let us know. We'd be happy to discuss further and want to encourage that dialogue as much as possible. So next slide. I guess just since we still have time, if there's any last comments or thoughts.
I do see that Maureen has a hand raised. I think that's new.
Yeah, I put my comment in the slide or the comment chat. As a recovering special ed teacher and a recovering project search teacher, I think that, including the transition teams from school districts for feedback, if the department could figure out how to do that, would be super helpful.
I very much appreciate that, Maureen. Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you all again for your time today. We are so grateful for you. I wish you and your families a lovely holiday season. And we will see you around, right? Have a great afternoon, all. Oh, Andre, if you could go back to the contact slide.
I'm trying here. Come on. There we go, sorry. Hey, Jenny, are we ready to stop sharing?
Just give us a moment. I think we're trying to figure out the poll question, like to make
Oh,
sure we
yeah.
can pull what we need.
Okay.
I can just screenshot them. But I can't see a way to like pull them out.
Yeah, I go ahead and screenshot them, Lauren, but I'm fairly certain that Jen with her administration thing can pull it later. I don't think we had to do anything specific for that.
Okay.
Stop recording now.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
There's like a blank 10 minutes.